Back to media and money. The topic of inflation today is probably one of the most hotly debated subjects worldwide. Media platforms are fragmenting the world over and new platforms are being developed. Advertisers and clients have increased demands for return on investments. Mike Leahy from Ibis Media Manager is here to fill us in. Welcome, Mike. Thank you for joining us. So yes, media directors are saying it's the most serious issue facing advertisers. What are the most fundamental issues that we are facing with media inflation?
There are two sides to media inflation. Media inflation as a phrase rolls off the tongue very nicely, but there are two sides to it. One is what you're paying. The second side of it, the flip side of the coin, if you like, is what you're getting. On the one hand, media costs are going up, but on the other hand, because of fragmentation, because new media are coming in all the time, new media opportunities, etc., the average medium is getting smaller. And that means that the delivery of each medium is reducing, which means that the costs are going up, deliveries are going down, result, cost per thousand of audiences is climbing disproportionately. And it's not a local phenomenon, it's happening the world over.
And this is set by the market leaders, right? So what controls are in place to control media inflation, or is it a free-for-all? Gavin, what do you think?
Well, I think what Mark is saying is right. We have more choices now than we used to have. So you can always walk with your money. I think that advertisers are being a lot smarter. It is about supply and demand. And as demand drops through recessionary times, it's very difficult for a media owner to suddenly raise prices. And if they do raise prices too much, there's a threshold where people just reduce their investment. So the question I wanted to ask Mark is, with this fragmentation, how do you see it actually really impacting on media planning and as it links to inflation?
Good question.
The problem with the fragmentation is that there are just more and more media. Traditionally, if you go into a media department, you'll see them tapping away at computers, accessing things like AMPs, the All Media and Products Survey in its various forms, RAMs and TAMs. Yes. You'll see them hopefully checking ABC figures. But a lot of the new media that are coming out have no figures. There's just more and more happening, and it's happening faster and faster, which means that you're taking yesterday's information, if you've got it, and some of that information can be fairly, let's say, hazy. Today, at some future event that you're using that information, and things are happening very fast in between. So it means that one's got to almost step back a little and use a lot more gut feel, a lot more common sense. And sadly, common sense is the most uncommon thing in many businesses these days. And creativity. I mean, that's what it's all about at the end of the day. Using media as one half of the advertising platform, what you say and where you say it, it's media that will deliver the creative message. And that has to be more creative.
But I'm sure media owners are aware of some of the issues you're raising now. What are they offering? What are they bringing to the table?
They're in a conundrum, particularly the big, more established media owners. It's very difficult if you're, say, a big daily newspaper, a big weekend newspaper, a TV station. It's very difficult to very quickly shift direction to create new media, etc., because you have a vast infrastructure, plus the fact that you've got an audience, and that audience is still huge. Make no mistake, yes, we see trends, we see reductions, but the Star is still pretty big, the SABC is still ginormous. We're not seeing a wholesale desertion of old media, we're just seeing a downward trend. They're not valueless, but they're not as strong as they were yesterday.
Gavin, what does it mean for you from an advertising agency point of view? The inflation, the issue about market inflation?
Well, I think that the challenge for us as an advertising agency, and there's a separation between media and the creative agencies, which is happening in the market. So it makes us, in order to really deliver value to our clients, we've got to ensure that we have a very close relationship with the media strategists on the other side. But from an advertising agency point of view, actually I think it's fantastic because it forces us to think differently and think more creatively and think about impact, because in the traditional media conversation it's all about reach, it's about CPM, it's about you know, a time slot and you've got 20,000 or 2 million people watching or reading or listening. And for us it's about, yes, but how do we get people's attention? Because media, people don't, they've got the repertoire's increased. It's not that people have swapped one media for another media. They're just consuming more types of media, and the digital platform, I think, represents a huge opportunity, both on mobile and on the sort of more conventional computer
But then,
basis.
Gavin, where are advertisers cutting costs?
I think there's a lot of costs being cut in production, but and that's not a bad thing, that we are shifting to high definition video now, which is fantastic. We're having to do, as an agency, do a lot more with less. We've got to be smarter, we've got to be more efficient, but the clients are in exactly the same type of pressure as we are. They have the same, they're seeing their return on their business going down. They're seeing that consumer demand is drying up, so they're also having to cut costs. So I think it's maybe a good thing. It forces us to be smarter.
Mike, why can't the inflation rate, be kept as close to the CPI as possible? What's the reason for that?
Ask publishers, ask media owners. No,
but is that not a solution?
Some publishers are, some media owners are. In the last couple of years, the SABC, for instance, has been at a standstill. They've obviously reacted to market conditions. The problem that most media owners have is you set your rates in advance, and then consumers, their consumers, readers, listeners, viewers, etc., either come in or they don't come in. So you're setting your rates in advance, but you don't know necessarily what your performance is going to be, and that's the difficulty that they have. For some media owners, it's much easier. Community newspapers, free newspapers, predominantly Caxtons, they've had an increase on their rates and their cost per thousands, which has been very, very close to the consumer price index through the years. But they're one of the few media that control their rates and they control their own performances, because most of their publications are handed out free of charge. Other publishers don't have that luxury.
Are we likely to see then a differentiated approach to rate increases in 2010?
Ads 24, the sales division of many of the larger Media 24 newspapers, has brought out a differentiated rate card. It's more expensive later in the year than at low demand periods. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is more expensive than the peak retail days of Thursday, Friday. That makes some sense, although the administration of it could create problems for some agencies. The problem is, and I'll come back again, is you set your rates in advance, but if the circulations go down after the advertisers paid for it, what do you do then? My belief, and we're certainly seeing it come through in some of the smarter people, is they're not negotiating just on cost, but they're negotiating on performance as well. We want a guarantee on so many millions of ears, or so many millions of eyes.
You want to justify that amount, isn't it?
Yeah, and we're beginning to see that coming through, but sadly it's not common yet.
We're going to have to wrap. That's all we have time for. Mike, thank you very much for joining us today.